Doing?
Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is a New York based pop artist with a passion for positivity and good vibes. Taking inspirations from Sara Bareilles and Lily Allen, she has just the right mix of badass edge and uplifting lyrics. Only a few releases in, with an EP on the way, she's only getting started. Welcome, Carina.
Hey, wow, I love that little blurb. That's nice. How you
I,
doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Um, So I always like to kick things off with just kind of where your journey with music all started.
So I grew up writing music on the piano since I was a kid. My Aunt Nina would give me like little piano lessons since I was like the age of 5. And then every year for like Christmas or birthday, she'd give me a coupon for like, oh, here's 10 free piano lessons. So I started early with like writing little like piano compositions. And then I did the theater route for a while. I went to college for musical theater, University of Cincinnati, go Bearcats. And eventually I moved to the city about like a year and a half ago. And I started writing music in college, like releasing music. So I got like the courage and the bravery to start, letting other people hear the things I was writing and making. But it took a while to kind of give myself permission to do that. And so I moved to the city and kind of fell in love with having complete control over things I was creating and just also inspiring other people to, like listen to my stuff. And the like you said, the music I write is kind of like positive, uplifting. At least the stuff I have out right now. I mean, get ready for this album. It's gonna be a little different, but but for now, I guess I wanted people to feel like they had somewhere where they can feel heard and can relate to something, and that's kind of why I fell in love with music because I wanted to kind of inspire other people to feel like they had a place in the world as well. And yeah, now here I am. I'm continuing writing and have an album dropping soon. And I'm just completely in love with it and just really excited for what's to come.
I mean, that's if that's not the energy you have about it, you're doing something wrong, you know?
Right,
You want to be
exactly.
excited for what's next.
Yeah,
Gotta recognize what's already there, but also
totally.
just
But
gotta keep looking at what's ahead.
right.
Um, at what point was it like, because like you said, you started with piano, you started with even like writing in that kind of space. When did that kind of turn into like when did that combine with singing? When did that combine with anything you were doing like theater wise that became actual like lyricism and songwriting that way to really be like, I'm putting these things on the internet?
Mm. Yeah, it was definitely a scary process to, like kind of give myself permission to do that. But I feel like because of my roots in theater a bit, it was kind of easier for me to transition from playing a character or like learning how to audition and like put myself out there in a way where I felt more comfortable being like, okay, this is my music and people can hear it and people can either like it or love it. And it's mostly for me to, like I enjoy writing. I enjoy the process. I enjoy the collaboration with other artists. So it became like just a big collaborative project for me, I guess. And I just felt more comfortable, I think, because of my roots in theater to give myself permission to do that, which was nice, I guess.
No, for sure. And I think even kind of having that sort of, you're not the first person that's come on here and been like, I started in theater, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing I'm sensing a little bit of a trend there. But having that kind of background and being like, I mean, theater, it's like all about that sort of like stage presence, like that kind of thing. That's going to take a lot of balls to do. So
Mm-hmm.
like that almost makes like that's almost putting you in a leg up in the situation of like some people will write music, but like putting it out there is like where like that's a line we're not crossing, you know? Like so
Totally.
having that kind of experience in a way that's going to boost up that sort of confidence, like that's a huge like especially just starting out, like you are just throwing stuff out there because it's like you're already comfortable with it, you know?
Right. It was super helpful in that way for sure.
Um, so at what point did it like transition from musical theater being like the thing, like you said you did that in college? when did that kind of shift into like, that's not for me as much anymore. I'll stick to the musical part of musical theater and do the music thing. But like, when did that kind of transition be like, this is the move?
Honestly, after so for most of these like BFA musical theater programs, you have like a senior showcase where you like sing a little, maybe like 16 bar cut, you do like two songs, and then agents come to your showcase and they sign you or they talk to you and you get interviewed by them. Um, so I graduated in 2021. So like right during like the COVID period where everything was transitioned to Zoom. Like I'm sure you understand, like
Yeah.
Zoom University, like singing in my little like house living room with all my roommates and tap dancing on our like wood floor. So I think like graduating during a pandemic had something to do with it because I lost personally that connection of being in a room with a bunch of people, showing them who I am, connecting with like their energy and them connecting with my energy. And then it all transitioned to self tapes, which was like now you just kind of stand in your living room and like throw spaghetti at a wall and send in all these videos that you don't know are going to be watched. You don't know like if you're too tall or your body's not the right size or you have brown hair, they want someone with blonde hair. It's just all like these little things that never really added up for me and never really added up for me. It's like I only did it for like a year and a half in the city, but there just got a point where I was like, I don't want to be told no. I want to work hard and put in the energy and the time and have more control over a track where I'm not like being told no or having like I need permission to do something. So I just wanted to take control into my own hands, and I feel like it's easier to promote myself and my own music than it is to get out there, play a character and promote or try to, like convince people that you can do something. So I don't know if that all like made sense when I was speaking it out loud, but yeah, I wanted control over my music. I wanted control over something. I love connecting with people. And what I love about the music industry is that it's more of a collaborative process where I feel like even in these past like this year and a half where I've been like writing, promoting, and making all this music is that I've met really incredible people just from like Instagram or TikTok that have commented on my videos and been like, hey, I love your music, or I want to work with you and be like a photographer, or I want to edit your videos or edit your pictures. And it just feels like a more like community based thing where everyone kind of wants to help each other and like get each other's music out there and everyone wants to play in like concerts and gigs together. And I'm not saying that theater isn't like a collaborative, beautiful process too, but I think it's different when you're given a script, you're told exactly what to do, you're directed in a way where like you have to be doing what the director's doing. But for music, it's like you're doing your own thing, you're making your own music, you're making your own connections. And I kind of like to do those things on my own most of the time. So
No,
yeah, that was that was a lot, but I hope it all made sense that like it
no,
did in my
yeah.
head, but
It always makes more sense in our heads than it does out
yeah, and
loud,
then putting
but
the words to it is kind of a lot.
yeah. No, that makes total sense. Like, especially like with it being an independent thing, like independent to me is like it means ultimately what you make it to mean.
Yeah.
Like some people, like I started out doing everything myself. I've only recently started outsourcing bits and pieces of the creative process and like any of it. Some people, they'll just write it, they'll work with producers, they'll have people like promote their stuff, like all that kind of thing. Like it's but the thing is what makes it independent is that like at the end of the day, it's your creative take on it. It's
Yeah.
you like essentially, I mean, you own everything that there is to it, unless it's like obviously if you're co-writing, then you own half of it or something like
Right.
that. But like having that sort of creative liberty on what this like big picture is that we're painting, like you still have to convince people to like care about what you're doing, but it's like different in the sense of like it's more like for the audience that you're convincing rather than someone that you have to like convince that you're like talented enough.
Right.
I
Totally.
mean, if you're doing the right things and like my thing is always, if you're doing what is natural and true to you, I mean, you can do whatever you want to make it like better, but like if it's like
Yeah,
coming from a very like natural and authentic place, you're doing the right things.
totally. I agree.
So that's that.
That's that.
Um that's that's that.
Mhm.
Um what do you think most often inspires your writing?
Ooh, honestly, and I hate that this is the way that it is right now, but like really shitty situations, obstacles, heartbreak, which is just like I use music as a diary, I guess, or as like a weapon in a way, where like if I'm hurt or broken or overcoming something, it's easier for me to sit down and write something that I also want to inspire other people to like. I know other people go through the experiences that I go through. Like we're all human. We all like have very similar emotions, but how we deal with them is all kind of different. And I like to deal with it with music and just like instead of writing, or I do write in journals all the time. I've had a bullet journal since I was like a kid and I do it every year and I always like write down like notes and I find lyrics within those like notes and journal entries and it's just kind of like a like therapy for me, I guess, writing music. And I want to inspire other people to, do the same or just listen to it and feel like they have a place in the world.
I mean, I feel like that was pretty well said.
Right.
Um, that thought got out well articulated.
Oh, thank
Um,
God. I love it.
but no, I mean, like, I think because like I obviously come from a background of also writing music, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like it usually is the things that we experience that aren't necessarily the most positive things that we want to write about. Why? Probably because it's harder to deal with those kinds of things than like nobody's gonna complain about being happy. Like
Right.
fuck off,
Yeah.
like that's just messed up.
Mhm.
But like there's something to be said about how we kind of translate those other emotions that aren't necessarily as desired,
Mhm.
like how that kind of is articulated. And it's usually more of a driving force to have something that you've been through than it be like I'm celebrating this, because then it's like why will people care that much, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's the thing, it's the like deeper the emotion kind of behind it, the more powerful the connection's ultimately going to be.
Yeah.
But the way that we kind of can tell those stories is what's really the interesting kind of piece of that puzzle.
Totally.
And that's where it kind of like your own personal experience comes. It's a universal like emotion, but like your
Yeah.
specific story is how it like translates specifically.
Mm.
So
You're right. I love that.
yeah. um if you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what are we calling it?
Ooh. This is such an interesting question because I was actually working with my sound engineer last night for 4 hours on this album, just like mixing and mastering everything. And he asked me, he was like, what kind of like genre do you feel that this music is, or what kind of genre do you fit yourself into as an artist? And genre is so complex for artists, I feel like whenever
Gotten
people are
pretty
like, oh, you write
stupid
music, what,
anymore.
yeah, like what kind of music do you write? And I'm like, like
But pop
pop
means so many
music.
different things
But they're
anymore,
like, yeah,
which is
what
just
kind of pop?
yeah.
And I'm I don't know, I'm kind of in like a weird dynamic between like what genre I want to fit myself into because I believe all music is good music. I listen to every kind of genre of music. I really fuck with everything, which is why it's so difficult for me because I don't know, some people are like, "Oh, you kind of have like a soul pop feel to you or like sunshine pop or just like all the different weird little sub categories of pop." But that's something I'm still working on. And I think it's also difficult as I'm now transitioning from like my singles into an album. And then like after that, like what I'm going to be doing. But I don't feel like one artist has to stick to a certain genre their entire career or they can kind of play around. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, just playing around, seeing what I like, seeing what fits, and seeing what works for like my vocal tone and everything like that. But it's
That's the
difficult.
that's the kind of pushback I've been getting. It's like people don't want to like put themselves in boxes, and that's not like, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Mhm.
you can like everybody changes. Like there are some people that I've talked to that you listen to their first project, you listen to their most recent project, they don't always like you can tell that it's the same person, but it's like we're in two different worlds here.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so putting yourself in that kind of like label is different, but it's kind of like I added this in this 2023 year for the purpose of like thinking about like if you were to like in a category of one, if you will, like what does that kind of look like? And when you said sunshine pop, I was like, I've never heard that before. I was like, that could fit. I've always spoken to like your stuff being very like soulful kind of pop. Like you
Mhm.
have that sense of like the like little like jazz-esque like taste to
Yeah.
it, but it is very clearly still pop. So
Mhm.
something in the jazz sunshine world is where we're
Jazz,
at.
sunshine, soul, like funk,
That
pop,
there we
swing.
are.
Yep,
Just
exactly.
hyphenate everything and we're right where we need to be.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. On that note though, is there a release that you've like already had, like not including this upcoming album, that you've put out that you think kind of best embodies who you are as an artist? Just like if you had to sell someone, this is and on just basically on becoming a fan of your music, you have one song to show them to kind of convince them to do so. What song do you show them?
I I don't think that the music I have out right now really defines that yet. I
Mm-hmm.
think in this upcoming album it will. Just because I wrote those songs as when I was like maybe 19, 20, and as a now a 24-year-old, soon to be 24-year-old, I feel like I've been through a lot more and
Mm-hmm.
experienced like adult life living in New York City. So I do feel like that has changed a bit, but I will say Woman in a Suit kind of is like a representation of like who I am as a person. And I wouldn't say as an artist, but I would say as a person. Like it's just sassy, feminist, just yeah, just like a strong, independent young woman and just kind of here to smash the patriarchy a bit too. So I do feel like that song kind of embodies like my energy at least, for
Okay.
sure.
Well, here is a snippet of Woman in a Suit.
So what if I'm a woman in a suit? But it let me do the things I couldn't do. Now all these guys are laughing with you. So what if I'm a woman in a suit?
Okay, well, on that note, if you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would you choose?
Ooh.
And I'm looking for an answer beyond what I dropped in the intro.
Okay. Um, we did talk about this a bit. I would say probably Renee Rapp a little bit. I do love her music. She's like sassy, fun, flirty, but also like a heartbroken queen where she has some like really gritty, just really authentic lyrics. Um, I love the style of Molly Grace as well. Her like soul jazz type like vocal tones is like kind of the type of energy that I give out in my music. Um, yeah, those are my two faves right now. I also love the style of like Sammy Ray. I don't know if you know Sammy Ray, but I've been to a couple of her concerts and I think that her, like musical energy, because she kind of has like a musical theater vibe to her. And that's kind of where I think maybe I have like a little piece of her in my heart a little bit too.
All good answers.
Thank you.
Um, um, beyond that, what is an outside passion of yours that you feel like impacts who you are as an artist? Like a non-musical tangent thing that kind of has influenced any sort of aspect of you as an artist.
Outside passions, like it could be anything.
Like it could, I mean, it literally, as long as it's not a music centric thing,
Mhm.
it qualifies.
I've always been I like working with my hands with art a lot too. Like I crochet, I knit, I collage. Like I just love anything where you're just like kind of creating something. And I'm gonna start using that in my music as well. Like kind of having like pre-save campaigns. Like I'll crochet you a bucket hat if you if you pre-save my my album, and I'll put you in a little hat and I'll pick it out and I'll send it to you. Something like that. I just like combining like a bunch of different passions into one because I don't think that artists are just like one specific thing. I think like a multi hyphenated artist nowadays are like so in, and because everyone's talented, everyone can do so many things nowadays that it's kind of like how do you put everything together and create like one big cake with all the ingredients, you know?
Fair enough.
That makes sense.
I crocheted bucket hats kind of threw me for a loop there for a
Yeah,
minute.
I
But
really
I'm back on
went
track.
like
Just needed a moment to process.
yeah, of course.
But no, I mean I 100% agree. I think that we are not one thing. Like, you
Mhm,
know, like I do this. I write music. You know, I do other things
mhm,
outside of that. Like everybody has a couple different things. Some people like are very committed to like one main thing and have like tiny other things. Some
mhm,
people it's more of like a mid-level balance. It kind of depends. Depends on a lot of things. There's a lot
mhm.
of, you know, a lot of question marks there. But
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting kind of thing because it's like another, in a sense, creative outlet.
Mhm,
So kind of having that and still having like the creative energy to do all these other things is a lot.
mhm,
But I mean, passion is passion, and I think in any way that we can like combine those things to be one big happy family, if you will, is a cool kind of uh thing. How long has knitting and whatnot been a thing in your world?
I've honestly been like doing all that since I was a kid, like maybe in like middle school. And then I stopped for a while. And then in college, I kind of started like a little knitting circle. Like I taught all my friends how to knit and crochet. We just like sat around in like little circles and had like a little like grandma moment. So I
Uh-huh.
also think it like what's that medium called? Like visual art is something that brings people together as well. So I just kind of like combining all types of mediums of art and just, I think it brings a good community together, which is my favorite thing about, music and art and the industry altogether.
I mean, so what I'm hearing is you've always been a little bit of an old woman at heart.
Yeah, at heart, an old soul. They all call me an
Old
old
soul,
soul.
soul pop, souls
Yeah, I
everywhere.
mean, I'm probably just reincarnated as like some, like, I don't even know.
Old jazz singer that used to knit.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. That's who I was in a past life.
Fair enough. So, as far as the consumer side of your music, what kind of ideal listening scenario would you want to put someone in to listen to your music?
Mm.
Situation, setting, any and all information is welcome.
I would say for most of my music, I want people to be like blasting it and screaming it from like the rooftops and like having their headphones in and walking down the street of New York City feeling like that bitch and like strutting and just feeling good in their own skin. And then I do have some music where I want you like in your bedroom, a candle lit, smoking a J, vibing out, just like having a good time, self-care, and like sobbing, I guess, like just like I want you to feel everything with my music. So smoking weed, sobbing, and strutting.
That's a lot to
That's
process.
that's
That's
actually
that
really
if you
good.
have that all in one day,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. That sounds like quite a roller coaster of an
Yeah,
afternoon.
for sure. But
So
that's
best of
me.
luck to
I'm
you
a
if
roller
this is
coaster.
if this is your world out there listening. Best of luck to you. Um
There should be warning signs for listening to my music.
oh good lord. I hope not. But I mean that's kind of all encompassing. That's kind of very like a little bit of everything, which is like a nice kind of vibe to have. Very curious to see when the album comes out, which of these songs are for strutting and which of these songs are for screaming on rooftops. But
Mm,
that's yet to be seen.
sure.
Um, that is okay. I mean, there's a lot of diversity in that. So like
Totally.
props there. Um
Thank-
I think this even kind of ties into that just based off of that answer. What is something that you think sets you apart from other independent artists besides the fact that you can strut and scream your music from rooftops?
Um, I would say I do make all my own music, which is really cool. And even yesterday when I was working with my engineer, he was like, I don't even know if you know this, but like in this one song that we're working on right now, he was like, you literally borrowed like a sharp 6, a sharp 7, and a flat 5 from like this other like from the scale. And I was like, oh, honestly, like in music terms, I don't really know what's going on. Like I only got a 3 up in key, but like I think I'm doing some crazy musical things that I don't even know are happening, but like in my head, I hear everything and then it just comes out, even though I couldn't really explain to you what's going on, which I think is cool because my music's funky. It has some kind of like weird, like musical theater element to it, but I don't necessarily know how to tell people that's happening in the song. So if you're musical and you listen to my stuff, you'll be like, "Oh, that's really cool that she did that." But if you don't, you won't have any idea, but you'll like the sound of it.
Fair enough. I mean,
Right.
it's I feel like sometimes it's almost even better when you can't explain it in that kind of way,
Yeah.
because the more like it's just like those people, like I had a professor in college that knew what he like knew everything about like the subject and the like software or whatever that he was teaching, could not teach it for the life of him because he knew it 10 times higher than any like newbie individual would. So it's like that just doesn't translate. So like not being too well versed to the point that it's like I know exactly what specific notes were borrowed from different things and this was in this mode and da 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 da. You're almost better off because then you don't have the opportunity to ramble on about that to someone
Yeah.
that's going to be like, I don't even know what
Don't
sharp
care.
five
I
means,
don't
you
care.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
People just want it to sound good on the
Mhm.
consumer level. It will be cool to someone who can like actually hear that and be like, those are these different things. And then like how that even kind of adds up. Cool.
Right.
But the less you can kind of translate it is almost better in some cases,
Yeah.
just
Let's keep it
because
simple.
you can talk yourself into a hole the more you know,
Yeah.
especially if it's in a place of passion like that. You're just going to be going and
Yeah.
there's
We
going to
don't
be
want to
no stopping
mansplain
you.
music. Yeah.
Is it mansplaining if it's from a woman though, or is it just mansplaining if it's a
Complaining.
man? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know either. I would just, yeah, I'll have to think on that one.
Okay. Fair enough. Um, what kind of, I know you've touched on this a little bit, but what kind of impact do you want to have with your artistry, with your music, even specifically anything coming from the album, any of those fun things?
I mean, even having like, I'm not looking for a huge like Billie Eilish type cult following. Like that's not something I need. I mean, it would be interesting and fun, but like I just want to reach like a very niche, I guess, like group of people that really enjoy my music. They listen to it and they love it and they feel like they have a place in the world, I guess, like how I touched on already. But I just want like people having like loving and listening to my music and feeling like they can relate to it in some way
Mm-hmm.
and feel good when they listen to it.
Yeah, I mean that ultimately, I mean that's I ask this question every time and it's a somewhat common answer in the way that it's like the ultimate like driving force is the passion, is the like that like connection. Like we don't just, I mean sometimes like obviously like you touched on it, this being just kind of a writing to get those kind of things resolved in your mind or whatever, like you know, like we could, there's always the possibility you write and no one will hear it, but
Mhm.
like what ultimately kind of projects that forward beyond it being like just me doing this for me, and what keeps it going, like because you're like in a very early stage you're putting a lot of energy into this and not seeing the instant results that we necessarily want. So like
Right.
kind of like what projects that forward is that sort of like you said, like getting sort of messages from people like love what you're doing, like this song like meant something to me, et cetera, like that kind of human connection, whether we like realize it or not, is a secret driving force
Yeah.
for some, and an aware driving force for others, just because it's like the more we can connect with one another is the more it makes like what we're doing kind of more impactful and more with a purpose.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, human connection.
Yeah, that's, you
That's what
know,
I'm
it's
looking for.
what makes the world go round.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally.
um that I think brings us to the last question and the overall concept of the podcast, which is why music?
Oh, that is such a broad question and I love it. I just think that music can do so much during, I mean, it's just kind of a baseline of like how you're feeling. If you're feeling sad and you want to cry, like you throw on some lo-fi or some like Joji, something crazy where you can like sob your eyes out to. If you're feeling really good in your own skin, I'm gonna throw on some Beyonce and I'm gonna strut down the streets of New York City. And I just feel like it's a good way to kind of make yourself self-aware of how you're feeling in that moment and kind of have a little like movie soundtrack, make yourself feel like you're in some kind of like rom-com or just kind of gives you like a baseline of life, I guess. I love music and I know everyone else on this planet has some kind of love for it too in some kind of way.
All except for the crazies.
All except for the crazies.
If you don't like music, we got issues. All right, we need to
red
talk.
flag. I agree. Like people that are like, "Oh, I don't listen to music." I'm like, "What do you think? Do you like
Right,
have
right.
thoughts like in your head running around all day? That's a little bit too much."
That's yeah. I mean, I have thoughts running around in my head all day anyway, and
Even with
we
music,
need to tone
yeah.
that shit down for a moment.
Yeah,
We need to
let's
put that
mute
on pause.
that. Yeah.
Um, she cannot be running rabbit all the time.
No.
That's
Mm,
not allowed. But
no.
no, I mean, there is something to be said about all kinds of music because it does have a varying impact depending on, like you said, like there are some like you're not going to listen to Beyonce and sob your eyes out unless you're listening to like Sandcastles or something. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's like
Exactly.
there obviously there is some variety within every artist, but even just like you're not going to listen to like certain types of music in certain situations. Like I feel like everybody's got a kind of little bucket of a few different
Yeah.
things going on, and the way that that can kind of amplify, adjust, or reframe the way that we are like currently experiencing life is
Mhm.
really interesting. Like you can put on sad songs when you're sad and feel like more heard and understood. You can put on good music when you're having a mediocre day and it changes the energy.
Yeah.
Honestly, the people like you like going to the gym, how you kind of cater what you're listening to will kind of impact how that kind of experience is for you. And like it's different for everybody, but at the same time it's like the decisions that we make with that kind of thing has an impact on who we are,
Yeah.
how we perceive things, how we're experiencing life. If you're only listening to sad music, are you okay? Like
Right. Are
it
you
just is
okay?
like, yeah, like are we like
Yeah.
let's slip something else in there, we'll be okay.
Yeah, let's cater
Um,
something a little bit different. Mhm.
right, but it's like music has that kind of overarching power to do a lot of things. It has the power to connect, but it has the power to like even just in an independent experience amplify your experience in a way that you might not have previously understood.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's some crazy magic going on in those
Yeah.
little mixing boards, but
Yeah.
um
Totally.
somehow it is all worked out, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
It all every song finds its home.
It always does.
It
Yeah. Somewhere out.
always does. It finds the right ears to call home.
Yeah. And I love
Yeah.
that. I love that about it. That yeah, every song has a place for someone. There's so many people in this world that have like different ears, you know?
Well, there's so many people that are like, especially now that the industry has changed and the way that we have means of making music in our basements and putting it online. There's never been more artists and creatives in the music space,
Yeah.
but almost every like it'd be hard to find an artist on Spotify that has like no monthly listeners,
Right.
unless that literally is just been a dead profile for six,
Right.
7 years. Like everything kind of makes its way to somebody in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a lot of other things behind that, but I think if done in the right way, it has everything kind of has its place.
Yeah. I agree. And I love that.
That's kind of what makes it a doable thing and a
Mm.
worthwhile thing, is that we kind of
Absolutely.
have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.